just wants to poke me and say, hey, here's a question if you want to do it that way, or maybe just save them to the end. I don't know. I do want to be mindful of our time together today. We have an hour. If you know me, you know I can speak for days on these topics. So an hour is, I can do it. It's manageable. But anyway, I just appreciate the opportunity today. I want to go ahead and jump in and get started. This is our topic today, achieving Security Operations Center efficiency using a very specific tool, right? Using Microsoft Sentinel. And I hope through our discussion today, you'll be able to see and understand. I truly appreciate Vanessa earlier talking about Microsoft's, she trusts the platform, trusts the products and services. I hope folks see that the investments that we've made in our security platforms and our services and tools, it's significant. And there's a very good reason behind that. And that is obviously to ensure that our customers can secure their environments, or at least we give them the ability to secure their environments, know their environments, secure their environments, and ensure, that they are always have the ability to continually be secure from the most current existing threats. So again, this one's very specific to Microsoft Sentinel, but again, we have all kinds of neat tools that folks can talk about. Let's start it out this way. I am Rod Trent. I'm a cloud security advocate at Microsoft. I'll explain that here in just a second. These are the locations where you can connect with me. I'm a very public person, and in fact, that's part of my role at Microsoft, and that's where I think needs some explanation just a little bit. In the old days, Microsoft had evangelists, and that was literally just going out and preaching about, our products and our tools and services. We've kind of altered that. We're now called advocates. And a lot of people might read that first and say, hey, you're an advocate for your products. Well, in a way, that's what I'm doing today. I'm advocating for Microsoft Sentinel. But truly what this is I'm an advocate for you. So at Microsoft, my role is to sit between our customers and our partners and our product teams. I go out, I engage with our customers and partners. My job is to gather feedback. That's my collateral that I take back internally to the product teams. And then we sit down and have these little mini debriefs to understand what we need to do with that feedback. Is it a new product? Is it a new feature? Do our docs need to be updated in some way? Do we need, some other type of content? Or, is there something else that we could do with that? Maybe it's a bug, right? So the feedback that I get through these public areas, Twitter, LinkedIn, my blog, and also our time together today, any feedback that you have that I can take back to the product teams to ensure that they do get that feedback. It's difficult when you think about it for our actual product teams to get customer feedback. So my jobs, I see it as kind of a very important thing. That's why I'm out here all the time speaking and talking and things like this and engaging with our customers. So if you have those questions, you have that feedback, that is very, very important to me. Another reason why that is so very important, I hope you understand this as well, not just the dollar investments that we've made in our security products, but great example, Microsoft Sentinel. It's been out for like 4 years. It's kind of a newbie in this tool area, but it has just 2 weeks ago, Gartner, announced that Microsoft Sentinel is the leader in this product tool category. The reason for that is not that dollar investment. The reason for that is the feedback from our customers. When Microsoft Sentinel released in September 2019, it was very, very different than what it is today. And the reason, 92% of the reason of that is that customer feedback. Customers use the product. This could be better. We need this type of feature, or we're not going to use it. And all of that has been fed back into the system, into our product teams and engineering to ensure that our security products meet exactly what our customers absolutely need. So hopefully that makes some sense there. That's my job. That's my role. So your questions and feedback today are very important to me. I do want to thank you for having me today. I truly, absolutely, hopefully you can tell, appreciate getting to talk about all the cool things that I'm part of at Microsoft. But I think more importantly, even so than that, is I believe that these things that I talk about have a benefit to our customers. And that's really the reason why I enjoy talking about them, because I see it constantly. Okay. Okay, so here's what I want to talk about today. Okay, here's what I intend to cover during our time together. So number one, you see there, let's level set so we're all on the same page. Why do we even need efficiency for our security teams? Okay, you probably have some ideas in your mind already, but let's talk about it. Think about the state, for example, of the global economy right now. It's top of mind for almost everyone. Organizations are looking to do more with what they have, right? So efficiency, big OCD thing of mine, can absolutely play a big part in accomplishing that. Number two, you can see that there. Let's talk about some of the things that are already keeping security teams from being efficient, right? Long before this current economic situation, there were probably things we did that could be done better. We just overlooked them for the moment because, it wasn't a necessity to take care of them at the time. Vanessa said at the end of her session there, I absolutely love that. People just install it and then they forget about it. They assume, let's just deploy the defaults and I'm taken care of, right? There's some things that we can do and we need to do to ensure that these things are configured the way that they should be on a continual basis, right? So there's probably some things you're already thinking of, some things we're already aware of about some efficiency areas that we can look at. All right. And then let's dig into how Microsoft Sentinel can actually help organizations be able to become efficient, right? Let's talk about some of the specific areas where Microsoft Sentinel is engineered to build efficiency to allow security teams to unburden themselves with some of those non-security tasks, right? If you've ever been in security or been on a security team, you know that there is a whole long litany of items that you absolutely have to do each day that has nothing to do with security. Like maintaining the system, ensuring that we have the latest upgrade, ensuring our threat intelligence is up to date, right? In a modern world, we shouldn't have to focus on those menial tasks. We should be able just to focus on the security, and we'll talk about that. All right, so let's take a minute to set the stage. Why do we need efficiency in security? All right. Will efficiency or attention to efficiency, will it actually compromise security or will it help bolster it? Right. And then is there truly some solution that can deliver the promise of this better security through this improved efficiency without even compromising security in the first place? Right. So we need to develop a modern response to security threats based on efficiency. There's that word again. As a security analyst or security team, when you are actively hunting or investigating threats in your environment, understand that you are on the clock, right? Things absolutely must happen quickly. Must get to the point of remediation as soon as possible because one intrusion could lead to the next, right? Or that parallel attack. One compromised account could lead to another. And like this crazy pandemic that we've been through, right? COVID, the COVID word, exposure can spread uncontrollably unless it's contained. You've probably heard the phrase super spreader event many times in the last few years. I don't think it was invented during COVID, but it's ideal for the situation. If you don't control an identified threat quickly, it can become a super spreader in a matter literally of minutes. Vanessa said these attackers, these threat actors are becoming more intelligent and smarter. That's absolutely the case, right? So this one intrusion could literally affect the entire environment in a matter of minutes sometimes, and I've seen this with our customers. So, oh, sorry about that. I'm getting crazy with my cursor. So based on recent surveys and reports, it's been determined that the average company needs 162 hours to detect, triage, and contain a breach. Okay, so let's just break that down so we've got a better understanding of what this actually is in real terms. Okay, the average organization takes 120 hours to detect, just detect an attack. All right. 5 hours, right, to investigate. 6 hours, I'm sorry, 5 hours to triage. And that's literally just trying to determine if there's actually something we need to do about this or not, right? 6 hours to investigate, 31 hours to contain or remediate the threat. All right. So that's a total of 162 hours. That's where we get that number. To me, knowing what I know about Sentinel, that's a bit much. We can do better. We absolutely need to do better, and we need a tool that can help us to accomplish that. So most of you, I hope, those that are in security, have heard of this 1-10-60 rule for cybersecurity. Okay, but if not, let me just explain it really quick. Not too long ago, this 1-10-60 rule was proposed as a goal, right? It wasn't set down as a rule of this is we absolutely have to do this now, but it was the goal to have this rule that maybe we would be able to obtain this sometime in the future when the tools and technologies have actually improved enough to get us there. And this was the goal, even at Microsoft, right? As we engineered things like Microsoft Sentinel, Defender, and other things, let's use this as a goal so that our customers can absolutely get to this point. The idea is that the most cyber prepared organizations should aim to detect an intrusion in under a minute, perform a full investigation in under 10 minutes, okay, and eradicate the adversary from the environment in under an hour to effectively combat that sophisticated cyber threat. All right, so that's pretty good. Now let's take a look at that and let's do our comparison. 162 hours, but let's put that into relative terms. That's actually almost 7 days, right? To be able to, from initial attack all the way to remediation or whatever we have to do on the end of this thing, that's 7 days. That's a full week almost, right? That's crazy. That's working almost 24 hours a day. Our goal is to get to 1 hour and 11 minutes, 71 minutes for each potential or actual successful attack, right? So that's pretty good. But you can see the discrepancy. 7 days versus an hour and 11 minutes. And I promise you, as we talk through today, Microsoft Sentinel, you'll see that we can actually beat that number, beat that 1 hour and 11 minutes for each of these, okay? So for me, if I take a step back and review operations from an analyst perspective, these on this slide here are the things that absolutely must be done by security teams each day to fulfill and enhance security operations for an organization, right? Thinking about that 1 hour, 11 days, that 162 hours, that's almost 7 days. This is those tasks that absolutely has to be done. That has to be added to all of that, right? These are part of a standard SOC workflow, part of normal daily operations, from triage to identifying false positives, which incidentally is another way to evolve the SOC to build bigger efficiency. But we're not going to be able to cover that in our hour today. Okay. Understand there's a number of value components built into Microsoft Sentinel that help streamline operations, even some of those manual irksome pieces that you're familiar with, probably hunting and things like that for SOC efficiency. Okay. So my approach to discussion topics like today's are always based on working with our customers. Right? I'm not just making this stuff up. These are things, the data and everything comes from our customers, the customers I work with. I glean a lot of knowledge working with a large number of customers, and based on, admittedly, an OCD of mine, this efficiency thing, I want to solve their complaints, particularly when it comes to the topic of efficiency. It literally pains me when things aren't done from an efficient standpoint, and I absolutely must fix them. If you talk to my wife about this, she would have story upon story upon story. Sometimes it's almost show-stopping for me. If I notice that something is absolutely inefficient or I could potentially do it better, I will stop the activity and fix it so that next time I do it more efficiently. Call it an OCD, call it a negative personality trait, I don't know. But from my perspective, what I do from a security perspective is absolutely valuable. So this list here on this slide are some of the complaints that I have heard and captured from working with our customers, okay? This list was developed based on their knowledge of working from their perspective in their environment, a lot of times using their old kind of legacy security tools, right? Most generally, these tools have historically been on-premises software and services. They become accustomed to them. They're very used to using these tools, but kind of like Vanessa said earlier, sometimes if it's not exciting enough, I don't know, it's probably a bad way to put it, but that tool gets forgotten. Or think about these economic times where we're trying to do more with less or do more with what we have. We kind of forget these things that we need to do, and we kind of go do those things that we feel are going to help us from an economic standpoint, help the organization. So as we move to the cloud, of course, Azure helps customers realize additional efficiency, but specifically for our discussion here, we want to focus on these bullet points, these pain points, and how we can improve even the most mundane and most manual processes. Okay, so let's run through these just really quickly because I'm going to jump back through these as we end our session today. Once we talk through all we need to talk through. All right, so number one, connecting data is brutally difficult. If you use a tool like Microsoft Sentinel, some things, some other tools I can think of is Splunk, Logarithm, QRadar, just to name a few, probably familiar with those. Connecting data, customers have said that have used those products is brutally difficult. It takes a long time to connect data and ensure that that data is always current, that the data ingestion flow is always streaming, right? So it's very difficult to connect and maintain that data, right? So that's one of the things that we know. Preparedness and hunting is too time consuming. One of the most manual processes of a security tool is to hunt, right? So our security tools, there's some automation built in. We'll talk a little bit later about the way that Microsoft Sentinel does this, that analyzes the data for potential threats, right? But even more so than that, that's great that our tool can do that, but we have to do manual hunting through that data periodically to ensure that we're still looking for the latest thing, right? Some brand new threat was announced at 4 a.m. on CNBC or something like this. We come in to work, we start our security job, we hear about these things through our trusted news sources, and we're like, oh my goodness, it's not analyzing automatically for that. I need to look to see if maybe we might potentially be impacted for this, and then I have to create some analysis around that so I can catch it next time. But you have to do that, and that is a manual process. We can absolutely fix that. All right, it absolutely needs to be fixed. Continual tuning and evolution of the SOC is non-existent in most cases, just like Vanessa said. You forget about these things, right? Any tool that you use, you have to continually maintain that tool. A lot different than just maintaining hardware and software and upgrades and stuff like that. We'll talk about that a little bit. But this is more so ensuring, just like that hunting, ensuring that you have the most current threat intelligence and ensuring that your analysis is actually looking for the most current threats. You have to continually tune and evolve that security operations center to ensure that you're catching the most current threats, most current things, okay? Adding investigative context. Those incidents or cases get created in the system based on identifying potential threats within the environment. A lot of times, analysts are forced to just work with alerts, thousands and thousands of alerts. There's absolutely has to be a better way, right? Has to be a better way than thousands of alerts. It should be capable within the tool to be able to pull those similar alerts together in a very single case that has all of the evidence, all of the collateral that's needed to solve this case extremely quickly, right? So adding that investigative context is super important. And then obviously locating and maintaining these trusted threat intelligence sources, or TI, right? The tool should be able to do that for you. Identify the trusted sources, and then in some manner, automatically, in an automated way, pull those threat intelligence sources in so that they can be applied very specifically to the data that exists within your tool. All right, so we're all on the same page, hopefully. The bottom line of this is that there's literally too much time spent on inefficient processes. Absolutely. These bullet points Customers have related these, and they're like, we're spending absolutely too much time on these, which means, number one, we're not going to do it. Number two, we'll do it when we get around to it. But at that point, the environment may have been impacted by a threat already, right? So we need to improve efficiency in these areas. Let me take a drink to clear my voice. So Microsoft Sentinel, all right, already provides some automated functionality. The most prominent, most glaring are the examples that I want to highlight as part of our remaining discussion today, but there are absolutely plenty more. I want you to kind of catch that, and I'll reiterate this a little bit later. See these bullet points. These are the things I want to talk about from Microsoft Sentinel efficiency perspective today, okay? We're going to cover each and every one of these things, but I do want you to understand this is based on the amount of features and the number of things that Microsoft Sentinel can do, and again, how it has evolved since it was born in September 2019 based on customer feedback. It has become this all-in-one tool. So there's a lot of areas that we're not going to get to cover today, but there's a lot of additional areas, and I hope you understand, part of that investment is that efficiency. Everything that we do within Microsoft Sentinel, we look at it from an efficiency standpoint. How can we solve those pain points for our customers? And there's a long list of additional that have cropped up over the years, right? Pain points for customers, and those have been solved with the Microsoft Sentinel, okay? So in the time that we have today, let's focus on these primary areas of Microsoft Sentinel that provide the most immediate value for efficiency. So you'll see as we talk through these primary areas that Microsoft Sentinel works probably similarly to the tools that you may already be familiar with. We talked about Splunk, QRadar, Logarithm, and others. Working with a customer this week that has Google Chronicle, right, and things like that. However, each area has received deliberate and intentional focus for improvement over existing legacy tools, right? There's a reason why Sentinel exists today. Microsoft didn't just go out and say, hey, let's just create this tool that already exists. Our customers actually asked for something better. That's why Sentinel actually exists today. All right. So unlike on-premises security solutions or other tools like Sentinel, okay, you don't have to worry about hardware or architecture, and Sentinel takes full advantage of cloud services. This means that because Microsoft Sentinel is cloud-based, cloud-born, never existed on-prem, and built on existing Azure services, a new Microsoft Sentinel instance can be stood up, I promise you, in less than 10 minutes, right? If we have some time at the end, maybe I'll show you that, and we'll do that whole setup thing. You're like, oh, you're lying. No, if you've worked with Sentinel, you know this. Stand it up in less than 10 minutes. Obviously, there's some additional actions that need to be taken after it has been enabled, but imagine not having to worry about buying new hardware, right? Maintaining disk or RAM, right? Or having to configure the network just to secure the connection to the security tool that's being installed, right? And then imagine being able to deploy a new security tool in a couple hours rather than days of deployment. If you're familiar with any, this is call them non-Microsoft tools at this point. If you're familiar with any of those, you know the resources that are required, time, people to deploy and upgrade and all this stuff, right? Also, because Sentinel is constantly updated, customers are always using the most current version of Sentinel. Everything that we do at Microsoft runs through this DevOps process. There's this accelerated product development cycle. Starts with our private preview program, public preview through GA, right? That whole feedback, customer feedback cycle. But there's new features, new functions released for Microsoft Sentinel almost weekly. We announced a bunch of things at Microsoft Ignite a couple of weeks ago, but those things would have been delivered anyway, even without Microsoft Ignite. They would have been delivered that week. It was just so happened, and we were fortunate enough to be able to announce them as part of Microsoft Ignite announcements. Customers don't have to take down the system just to do an upgrade. Just think about that, right? Because it's always the most current. Doing an upgrade, taking the security tool down just to do an upgrade actually creates a security gap all its own. That's one of the things that we identified. Customers shouldn't have to take the tool down, creating a security gap just to do an upgrade, right? Sentinel always has the most current features. most up-to-date threat intelligence. We talked about that threat intelligence just a second ago, one of those pain points. Customers don't have to subscribe to something extra to continually be current. They only need literally to open up the Microsoft console every morning as they begin their day. Open up the console, you've got the most current stuff, right? You don't have to go, oh, we need to upgrade before we get this threat intel. That threat intelligence is fed into the system every single day. New threat intelligence on the most current data, most current threat attacks, okay? So there are two key and critical pieces that make a SIEM, or security information event management tool like this valuable, okay? The first is having the ability to connect data literally from anywhere, any source, any format. Because understandably, if an organization is not able to ingest even a single log file that contains security events, that means that there's at least one remaining gap in security in that environment. It may exist somewhere in the deepest, darkest, right, most forgotten corner of the environment and have a non-standard format, but without being able to glean the information from it into our security tool, we're exposed. All right. Microsoft Sentinel makes it easy to connect data. A few clicks here and there, in most cases, will get the logs connected. Think about this. One of those pain points, data collection. Sometimes it takes days to ensure that the data is collected and streaming. The connection process in Sentinel even includes an auto validation process to ensure the security team member that's actually making that connection has the proper access. This ensures less debugging of data connections, which saves time. It also ensures that you can connect it right away, or you can go ask that person to connect it that needs to be able to connect it. All right, that efficiency perspective. Somebody tries to go in and connect something, it doesn't work right away. I got to go do this other task, and then I'll come back to it later, and we figure out 2 weeks from now that we still didn't connect that data. Click, click, click. Let's connect data. That's awesome. The data connectors are supportable and sustainable because they are built based directly from the originating services guidance, right? So this eliminates guesswork, which saves more time. Microsoft is not creating the Microsoft way of connecting data. We're using very industry standards to be able to connect that data, and we're using the guidance from partners like Cisco, right? Or Palo Alto, just to name a couple, right? Even AWS or GCP, we use their guidance on how to connect data to Microsoft Sentinel, right? So we're not creating a Microsoft way, we're creating something that's sustainable. And if something breaks from that perspective, then you can go look at that source and maybe they've changed their guidance or they've adjusted a port or something like that, right? But we're going to also tell you that as well. The data is stored in a log analytics workspace within Azure. If you're not familiar, a log analytics workspace can ingest or retain literally as much data as you can possibly give it, right? Like our competitors, you don't have to call up Microsoft and request more space, wait for your operations team to build it out for you if it's on-prem, or have to estimate your new ingestion amounts so the price of an existing SIEM contract can then be reconfigured, right? If you're using or have used other SIEM solutions, you know exactly what I'm talking about from that perspective. So easy connection to data. And to prove how focused we are and making sure our customers can connect their data easily and efficiently, we've kind of reimagined how data should be connected. So we have our data connectors, right? But we also have this semi-new capability. It's still kind of public preview, called Microsoft Sentinel Solutions. So our efforts to connect all data has generally been focused on data connectors, but Solutions makes connecting data even more efficient. Similar to what you see in the Azure Marketplace or the Windows Microsoft Store, this Solutions area offers a package of deployable content. So each solution contains several artifacts to make it a complete package, including things like the connector, right? A parser, you can see right there, I've got highlighted as the example, Oracle, Oracle database connection, a workbook or the reporting tools, the analytics rules, that analysis I talked about. So wouldn't it be great to be able to connect your Oracle database and then Oracle has supplied the analysis? Who knows better the security threats within their own service than the originating provider? So Oracle, right? So they produce these analytics rules, and hunting queries might be part of that solution, that package solution as well. So when you choose to deploy a solution, you literally get everything that you need for that connection. Again, click, 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 and we have that solution connected. In fact, I was in Cleveland, Ohio, United States, on Tuesday with one of our partners for an executive briefing. You might have heard of the company called Tanium. We announced something, an integration, partner integration with Tanium a few weeks back. I was with them, and that was what we were talking about, this Tanium solution that they have. If you ever have used Tanium or familiar with it, it's very, very easy. We've worked with Tanium to create this packaged solution so that it's very easy to connect Tanium to Microsoft Sentinel. And here in the near future, we'll talk about other integration options for Tanium, such as Intune and things like that. So this is very important to us to be able to connect that data. The second most critical, you heard me talk about the first most critical piece, which was connecting data for a SIEM or SIM, however you pronounce it. The second most critical piece of any SIEM is data analysis, analyzing that data for security purposes. All right. Microsoft Sentinel provides auto analysis of data looking for security events. Rules analyze data on a schedule, and once that defined threshold is reached, if it finds that thing that it's looking for, it's going to generate what we call an incident. Based on those thousands of alerts, potentially, it's going to create an incident, a bucket of information, which includes all the alerts associated with it and all the other evidence, right? The incident is used to provide and develop context. We talked about that earlier, one of the pain points for a full investigation, right? So in Sentinel, these incidents, not just focused on multiple alerts, it's smart enough using some artificial intelligence and machine learning to pull together all the artifacts of that case or that incident so an investigator can or analyst can see the entire storyline of how this event happened in the environment, right? All the way from infiltration, all the way through exfiltration, right? And all of those MIBR Attack timeline components in between. It's going to show the entire storyline of how something progressed within the environment. Hopefully, we're going to catch it here, right, at the very beginning. But it could be that we're at the end. We've only caught it at the end for whatever reason. Sentinel is going to allow you to catch it a lot earlier, I promise. The query language is another important key factor for providing efficiency for security teams. KQL, and we'll talk a little bit more about that here in a second, has been developed. This Custo query language has been developed for performance and efficiency, empowers the logic behind Microsoft Sentinel's analytics rules, the hunting rules, and our workbooks. Okay, those reporting tools. When an analyst, again, who is on the clock when security events are exposed, is looking for security events and potential threats, they need an efficient query language, okay? They need the ability to produce results very quickly. I've worked with customers that have been amazed at the difference in the time it takes for their existing tool's query language, almost every tool has their own query language, to produce results compared to what KQL does with Microsoft Sentinel. In a couple cases, using their data, the customer's data, ingested into Sentinel, Microsoft Sentinel returned results in 10 seconds or less, while the results from their existing tool literally took hours. I worked with one customer. They had an SLA. People would come and request data. They had an SLA that was like 3 days. Well, you'll get your data in 3 days because it takes us that long to create the query. The query that long to run and produce the results, right? Most times, right? So that was their SLA. Again, those that are familiar with other tools, those other tools we talked about, you know exactly what this looks like and exactly how critical it is to get results back for security operations. All right. So for those interested in learning this fantastic KQL query language, I could get on a soapbox here, but I won't. There's a must-learn KQL resource that is methodical and logical about teaching it. Okay. Hopefully you've seen this. If you've not, if you go to aka.ms, you can see the link there /must-learn-KQL. This is a 20-chapter series filled with fun, some of my stories, my childhood stories that relates to security, and some hands-on learning to ensure that you absolutely get it. And at the end, there's an open book test that results in an actual certificate, right? You take a little exam, a little assessment thing, and you can request your certificate for it. As necessary as PowerShell was to learn once it became a thing, right? Back when, KQL is literally the next big thing like that, okay? So I invite everyone to jump on board and get learning. KQL is not just for Sentinel, it's for Defender, it's for Intune, it's literally for anything data-centric within Azure or Microsoft services. So it's relatively important to learn. I just want to put that there. Also, for those interested, I don't know if my camera's still working or not, if you can see me here, but there is a Amazon version, a global version of the Must Learn KQL series in a paperback, if you like that as well. So I'll leave that there. Workbooks. Microsoft Sentinel provides dynamic reporting tools in the form of integrated or included workbooks. These workbooks help analysts visualize data so it can be consumed in a much more meaningful way, but also allows the data to be manipulated dynamically. I'm a very visual person. I would rather read a comic book than a novel, I promise you. I want pictures. That's why I love workbooks so much. Adjust the workbook focus, whether it's the user account, host name, IP address, data source, or what have you, and the workbook data is automatically adjusted using the efficiency that we're looking for, right? Helping get to that 1-10-60 rule we talked about, but in a more visual, more modern way. Organizations can develop their own workbooks to supply the team with common dashboards that contain critical data for SOC monitoring. All right. Incidents, we talked about that a little bit. I don't want to spend a lot of time here. We've got about 20 minutes. Are what are generated by the automatic data analysis from our analytics rules. Okay, we talked about that little bucket of artifact and evidence and the alerts. The incidents contain the events, alerts, and context that are critical for ensuring quick and complete investigations. All right. Investigations are powered by the entities and additional context that is supplied from the analytics rules and the incidents context. Okay. The data supplied is used to automatically stitch together, like I said, that story and timeline of how an event transpired in the environment. This ensures that an investigation can proceed uninhibited, okay, and without unnecessary delay. Efficiency, right? Being able to close something out very quickly, identify exactly what it is, that's huge from a time perspective. Hunting, we talked about that earlier, as one of those pain points. Hunting is one of the more painful areas for any security team. Absolutely has to be done, but it's still a manual process. All right. Hunting is a manual process. Reiterate that. It's a preparedness exercise that serves to answer 4 simple questions about the environment. Does it, this new threat that's been reported overnight, does it exist within my environment? If it does, where does it exist? Right. And why does it exist? If it exists, we find out where it exists. Why does it exist? Did a user click on something silly? Did they do something silly within the environment they know not to do or something like that? And then ultimately, the answer to the 4th question as part of this hunting, how are we going to react to that? Do we lock out a user? Do we quarantine a PC or a device? Do we notify HR because it looks like it might be some kind of internal situation, right? So at Microsoft, we put a lot of effort behind supply and efficiency in this area, making many of those mundane tasks of preparedness more automated. So security teams spend less time in this area, right? It's still necessary. I promise you, it still absolutely has to be done. It's just no longer a drudgery, okay? It simply becomes this normal part of those daily operations, those things I said that we absolutely must do as a SOC. Hunting can become part of those things that we absolutely must do and in an efficient manner. So over time, when newly discovered threats are exposed to the environment, Microsoft Sentinel hunting queries can be evolved into analytics rules, more efficiency. So if we create these manual efforts, right, create these queries, we look for that thing that we need to go look for. If we've identified it, if it becomes something that we want to be identified on a consistent basis, we can actually evolve that or turn that into that analysis, that automated rule over time that automatically looks for that thing. So we never have to do this manual process again, eliminating that manual task, building efficiency. All right. Also in hunting, we have this thing called live stream. It's a manual task, obviously, this hunting process, but I'm typing out queries. I'm looking at the results. I don't want to have to keep typing this stuff out and looking at results. If I'm sitting there wasting time doing this, if I spend half an hour and I finally determine it's not an issue, or maybe it is an issue, I spend a half an hour doing that. What we have with live stream within Microsoft Sentinel hunting is you can take that query, stick it into what we call a live stream that forces that query to automatically run every 30 seconds until I either turn it off, pause it, or delete it. So if I'm looking for multiple things may have been reported overnight. I'm looking for multiple things. I put it in the stream. It automatically runs. It's going to notify me if it finds that. If it doesn't, if I spend half an hour and those things are running on their own, I've gone to do other things. I come back and it does notify me. I have something to do. If it doesn't notify me, I can just close those things out and not worry about those things anymore because that doesn't exist in our environment. I could potentially make it a rule just in case over the next 2 or 3 days this new thing kind of infiltrates, but you can kind of see the efficiency there from a hunting perspective. Watchlist in Microsoft Sentinel provides an easy way to maintain lists of things like trusted users or IP addresses or domains to avoid. Okay, the content in these watch lists can be integrated with existing analysis, those rules, so that those things stored there can help dictate when an alert is issued. So those thousands of alerts, wouldn't it be nice if we could pare that down to like 10 alerts? That would be awesome. We can use Watchlist to do that. So for example, if an incident is raised against someone doing some sort of administrative task or activity, but that user is actually an administrator and should have the access and capability to do that task, then it's most efficient to not report on that specific individual, right? There's this whole thing about insider threats, which we won't go into that discussion, but let's just assume that this person should be able to do whatever that task was. This enables security teams to work more efficiently by focusing only on those alerts and incidents that mean something versus spending wasted time just closing out incidents that shouldn't have been created anyway, right? You can kind of see that watch lists are huge from that perspective. User entity behavior analytics, or what we call within Microsoft Sentinel UEBA, or even just entity behavior these days. And we kind of relate it to just entity behavior. Initially, it was user entity behavior analytics. It was just focused on the users. Now we've expanded that to focus on IP addresses, devices, services, principal accounts, users, obviously, but things like that. So this is a way to quickly get more information about a user or device from a historical perspective, right? So UEBA is constantly monitoring the entities in the system for you. It's not something you turn it on, it just does it for you, okay? An efficiency thing. It does it to record what they have done in the past, these things these entities have done in the past, past 30 days, past 60 days, past 90 days. This is helpful to security analysts in that they can quickly look back over the recent history of activity for this entity and determine if this currently reported activity is an outlier or more common. Maybe part of our analytics rules, this dragnet, they captured this person that's potentially never done this before, or maybe they have done it before. If they've done this, 100 times over the past 30 days, probably a good indication they're supposed to do this. If they've never done it before and all of a sudden you see this thing, it's potentially an administrative activity, then that makes more sense. That becomes more critical to look at from the environment standpoint. But UEBA is absolutely going to provide that for you from an automated perspective. Efficiency, let the tool do the job for you. From an efficiency standpoint, this provides for quicker identification of whatever that situation is. That storyline we talked about as part of our incidents, click through the entities, look at their past activity. You can determine very quickly if this thing that they've been caught up in is a critical situation or not. You may be able to just close it out. Oh, that user does that thing all the time, right? Automation, right? Obviously, you hear automation, you think, oh, that's absolutely efficiency. Automation in Microsoft Sentinel is supplied through what we call playbooks. Playbooks can be run in 3 different locations in Microsoft Sentinel: in the investigation graph, directly in incidents, and also enabled as automation by attaching a playbook to the analysis or those automated analytics rules. All right. So analytics rule runs. It finds that something that we told it to go look for, that security event, right? And it generates that incident, that bucket of evidence, and that storyline. But now it also does something else that we told it to go do because we attached a playbook to it. Maybe something as simple as sending the security team an email alert. I know hundreds of customers that do this. They don't want to have to look at the console every single day. They want to be notified if something's critical. So analytics rule runs, they attach a playbook that sends the team an email or puts it in a Teams channel, right? So they can work on it through Teams together. Or maybe based on that KQL logic, it could create a service desk ticket if that's how you manage services within your environment, right? Assigns it to a specific analyst, locks out a suspicious or potentially compromised account automatically. Playbooks are built on logic apps, which means the types of automation that can be developed are only limited by your imagination. Automation really kind of speaks for itself, right? Having the ability to automate common and repetitive tasks for more efficient operation is key. This is built into Microsoft Sentinel. Some of the other, and again, non-Microsoft Sentinel tools that you're probably familiar with, they've started adopting this SOAR capability, this automation capability over the past 3 or 4 years. It's been identified as something that absolutely should be integrated. Some of them rely on third parties or third-party integrations or connections or add-ons, which actually ends up increasing the contract or costs more because you have to go out and buy something else. This is one of the things that we identified when Microsoft Sentinel was being developed. It absolutely must be built into, integrated 100% into the tool. And that's where logic apps and playbooks come from. They are integrated directly into Microsoft Sentinel. It's not something you have to turn on extra. You just take advantage of it. In fact, when you stand up Microsoft Sentinel, which again takes less than 10 minutes, you will see we have a number of playbook templates in there. You literally just have to turn it on. Hey, I want to send an email to my security team on this thing, right? Just turn it on. It's awesome. A lot of templates, a lot of goodness to be able to accomplish that. Automation rules, more automation, on the other hand, is a way to create quick, effective automation. So while playbooks enable interaction with things like external APIs for gathering additional threat intelligence and things, and can be very detailed sometimes and lengthy, even though it's very easy to create playbooks. It's low or no code, very visual. Automation rules, on the other hand, enable a much faster, easier method of applying it for automation. Okay, so for example, if there's an incident that comes through regularly and you have a very specific person on your security team that is skilled, that's this person, this is their job, maybe it's PowerShell or something, right? That's skilled in this area, you can actually use an automation rule to create this very quickly to automatically assign that incident to that person. Okay, automation rules allow you to call playbooks also. So create those playbooks, right? We don't have to exclude those because we're using automation rules. You create this automation rule, it becomes almost like the traffic cop or the filtering mechanism before we determine what we need to do. An automation rule is not going to quarantine a PC or quarantine a user account if they've potentially been compromised. Playbook is going to do that. But the automation rule can determine who needs to get this and then run that playbook to automatically quarantine that, right? So it's assigned to the person, or it's assigned to the security team, or assigned to the networking team, or potentially who is managing devices or user accounts, your Azure Active Directory person, right? It assigns it to them, but automatically quarantines that using the playbook. So pretty cool. Automation rules, of course, are quick, efficient, and very customizable. So when creating custom content, okay, you can manage it from your own Microsoft Sentinel workspaces, okay, or from an external source control repository. Microsoft repositories, this feature, customers absolutely identified, they absolutely needed this. It enables connections between Microsoft Sentinel and GitHub or an Azure DevOps repository, right? Most people use a GitHub these days for this. Azure DevOps, it's kind of questionable how much longer that thing will be around, but focus on the GitHub piece, right? So managing your content in an external repository allows you to make updates to that content outside of Microsoft Sentinel, right? And have it automatically deployed to your workspaces. Over time, Microsoft Sentinel, I kind of refer to it as almost the tofu of security products. Over time, as you use Microsoft Sentinel, you enable the things that we provide, you enable the things that our partners provide to automatically get those security sources. But over time, you know, as you create your own analytics rules from that hunting or from other perspective or other things that you connect in your environment to Microsoft Sentinel to look at those logs, you're going to create some custom things. Over time, within the first 3 months, Microsoft Sentinel for your organization is going to look 100% completely different than any other organization in the world. You're going to have a lot of custom stuff. So how do you save that? How do you redeploy that? What do you do with that custom information? This is where repositories come in, right? Many organizations actually use this method to keep multiple Sentinel instances updated, depending on how your architecture looks. Some organizations need to store data in certain places, so they will need to stand up Microsoft Sentinel, right, based on GDPR in different places, but they want them, you know, they want the custom stuff to be the same, right? So organizations will use this to keep those Sentinel instances updated. or to quickly and efficiently deploy an organization-specific content to a brand new Microsoft Sentinel instance, right? Efficiency of repositories. Don't lose your custom stuff. Don't have to do this manual copy and paste and create this whole environment and maintain it. You can allow repositories to do that for you. That's great from an efficiency standpoint. We're getting very near the end, and I promise we are actually pretty close to the end. I hope I have time for a little demo. We may not, but we may just stick with questions. The last piece of efficiency I want to talk about, again, going back to what I discussed at the very beginning, this is just a few, and I've really rushed through a lot of these things to ensure that we have time to discuss these things and open it up for questions. But there's a lot more, I promise you, and it's all based on efficiency. If you've not utilized Microsoft Sentinel yet, or even looked at it, I entreat you to do so. The last thing I want to talk about is this MIBR Attack capability that's built into Microsoft Sentinel. You should be very familiar, if you're in security, should be very familiar with this MIBR Attack framework, or this timeline that MIBR has developed that details the story, or details this timeline of how events occur, all the way from the initial intrusion all the way to exfiltration or taking over the entire environment, right? There's a whole long list of steps in between, right? A lot of organizations follow the MIBR Attack framework, and they create and build their security tools based on this, because it's an industry standard. It's very cool, very interesting. MIBR Attack is a publicly accessible knowledge base of these tactics and techniques, right? These are commonly used by attackers, and it's always evolving. There's new added all the time as new threats are identified. This is created and maintained by observing these real-world observations continually. Many organizations use the MIBR Attack knowledge base to develop specific threat models and methodologies that are used to verify security status in their environments. Part of that preparedness or hunting operation, they'll use MIBR Attack framework to identify where they need to focus. Microsoft Sentinel actually analyzes the ingested data for your environment, not only to detect threats and help you investigate, okay, but also to visualize the nature and coverage of your organization's security status against MIBR Attack. Our hunting queries, our analytics roles, everything that is developed with the Microsoft Sentinel is based off this MIBR Attack framework and other things, Microsoft Threat Intel and things like this. But you'll see very clearly this feature within Microsoft Sentinel is relatively new, but it's pretty important. You can actually go in and do some modeling to take a look at where you have coverage and where you don't. If you don't have coverage, maybe you need to enable some more analytics rules that we've provided or our partners have provided. Maybe it needs to be created, right? But it gives you a very good understanding of where you're covered based on MIBR Attack within your environment. You can do the modeling, you can do some exports and reporting on this stuff. You can show your SOC manager, hey, we need to kind of focus here for the next month on creating some of that custom content that we can send to our repositories and filter out through the rest of our Microsoft Sentinel architecture. Whatever, but this is an efficiency standpoint, right? You automatically go in, choose that tactic or technique, and it's going to show you where you might falter or where you need to put some additional resources and things like this from an efficiency standpoint. All right, so to close out, we're about 5 minutes to jump back through our list. Okay, let's jump back through this and see if Sentinel was able to help in these areas where most of the efficiency complaints come from. Okay. Remember, connecting data is brutally difficult. Microsoft Sentinel is absolutely not. A few clicks here or there, enable a solution from one of our partners. We talked about Oracle and Tanium, and it's going to contain literally every bit of artifact that you need to deploy that solution very quickly. All right, so we make it easy. Preparedness and hunting is too time consuming. We talked about those efforts. Hunting is still a manual process. We've not eliminated that through Microsoft Sentinel, and the industry won't eliminate that anytime soon, I promise you. Still necessary because your environment is absolutely different than another environment. Can't always provide the automated pieces until we know more about it, right? So hunting is important, but we've made it less time consuming, right? Being able to turn hunting queries into analytics rules, so you don't have to do that one thing, any longer. We've We have the live stream where you can put your hunting queries into the live stream and go do other things, right? So yeah, we've absolutely addressed that. Continual tuning and evolution of the Security Operations Center is non-existent. We talked about that earlier. You saw turning a hunting query into an analytics role, that turning something manual into something automated. You saw talk about playbooks, how we can ingest from APIs or external sources to provide additional context, which is the next bullet point, for the tuning and evolution of the Security Operations Center. As you create the custom things within your environment and send them to repositories, you are evolving that Security Operations Center so it works better with your environment than some other environment across the entire environment, right? So we have absolutely addressed those. And then the last one, locating and maintaining trusted threat intelligence sources. That's part of the automation in those playbooks as well. So we've covered all of those, and I actually covered a few other things to show you some efficiency from that standpoint. I do want to thank you for the time that we've had today. We have about 3 minutes. I don't think we exactly have time for a demo or something like that. But are there any questions for me? Did anything pop up while I'm looking at the chat? I don't see anything. Anyone have any questions for me? Are you all asleep?
I have a general question. Why are you called as speaker 25 on Twitter?
Very good. I appreciate that. So we did internally did some video for something. It was probably about 6 months ago. And for some reason, everybody had their Twitter handle, had their name attached to it from Teams. And for some reason they couldn't, I don't know. They forgot to put mine in there. And I was just listed as speaker 25. Didn't upset me, but I thought it was a little strange. So I just changed that. I thought it was pretty hilarious. So I just changed it to speaker 25 on Twitter. That's how everybody knows me these days. So one of those anecdotal stories. Any other questions like that I can answer? Was this useful, helpful? Probably knew about this already. Maybe I'm just preaching to the choir, but hopefully there was something in there that was valuable. Like I said, it's an hour. I can talk for days on this stuff. You can probably tell that, but hopefully there was some value in here that you were able to glean from it. Nothing. Nobody wants to talk to me. Give me that feedback. Come on, that's my job here at Microsoft.
Looks like all are ready to start writing SC exams. All the XCs.
SC. Well, I tell you, I can't even see it. This KQL, that's part of the SC 200 exam. So.
Oh, okay, interesting.
Yep. All right. Well, with that, we've got about 20 seconds left. I guess I'll turn it over.
Yeah.
And again, I appreciate the opportunity today.
Thank you.
Always happy to come back. Always happy to talk with anyone about this over Twitter, LinkedIn, anything. Just absolutely reach out and I'll help.
Sure. Thank you, Rod.
Yep. Have a great day.